A new game has been recently launched, but it's running really slow on your low-end graphics card. Then how can you solve that? The answer is not always about spending more money and buying an expensive graphics card, but it can be easily solved by knowing how to optimize your graphical settings in a video game. So by doing this, you can still run your game more smoothly on your low-end graphics card. And if you change the game settings without really understanding what each setting does, then your game will run like garbage. Hello everyone, welcome back to our beginners video series. This is your host Annushree, and today's video is called Know Your Graphic Option. So it's a deep dive explainer video on some of the common graphical settings and what they do in a typical video game. So guys, this video will have a part 2 where I'll be focusing on how to optimize the graphical settings, and I'll also show you the comparison between optimized and unoptimized graphics by playing some heavy video games. So guys, if you're interested in watching this video, then stick till the end, because I promise you, knowing these tips will greatly improve your gaming experience. So guys, first up is the setting with the most impact on performance, and that is resolution. But what is resolution? Resolution is the total number of pixels included inside the height and width of a monitor. Now, resolution gives you great visuals, but it directly affects your performance, meaning the more you turn up your resolution, the heavier your game will run on your graphics card, because the number of pixels are being increased. Nowadays, 1080p or Full HD monitors are commonly used, and there are more advanced monitors like 2K monitors, 4K monitors, or even 8K monitors. But for the sake of this video, I'll be talking only about Full HD monitors. And besides, when you play your game above Full HD monitors on a low-end graphics card, it would be pretty difficult. I mean, it's obvious. Now, if we select the default or a native resolution of a monitor, then your video game will look crisp and detailed. Meaning, for Full HD monitors, if you set that resolution to 1080p, then your video game will look like very detailed, very clear, very good. But if we reduce that resolution to say 720p, then your game will start to look blurry or even pixelated. Next up is texture quality. But before we go into that, texture in a video game is the actual physical appearance of details on objects, characters, items inside a video game. So texture quality directly impacts how the items in a video game like trees, houses, rocks, even words or text look. But guys, one point to note is that putting the texture quality to high or ultra is not always necessary, because even if you set this particular setting on medium, your game will still look good. Besides, almost all modern games are made in such a way that they look pretty good, even at lowest, not lowest exactly, but even at the low settings. And guys, even when you set this setting at high or ultra, you can only see the difference, say when you're standing still or looking closely at a wall or a ground. So you can't really see the benefit of texture quality if you're not using a big screen or a big resolution monitor. So turning up the texture quality can only affect your FPS or performance. The third setting is shadow quality. Now, shadow quality is kind of self-explanatory. So as you increase this shadow quality, the clarity and definition of shadows cast by objects, characters, and light sources inside a video game increases. Shadow quality is one of the most resource-hungry visual options in most video games. And nowadays, even medium shadow quality is like good enough. I mean, it can make your game look pretty good. Similar to texture quality, this particular setting can also affect greatly on your performance or FPS. And most of the time, you can't really see the difference between high, medium and ultra shadow quality when you're moving around. Then we have anti-aliasing. Now, anti-aliasing basically is smoothing out of rough or jagged edges of characters, objects, items inside a video game. So guys, high anti-aliasing quality can lead to sharp drop in FPS. So these settings, be it texture, shadow, anti-aliasing, so all of these settings have one thing in common, and that is they can affect greatly on performance and FPS as long as you turn it up. So the more you turn it up, the more chance that your FPS will drop. So more often than not, keep this anti-aliasing setting at the lowest or maybe a bit higher than the lowest, like the 2x. The next setting is considered as one of the heaviest setting in modern video games, and all video games didn't have this setting and all graphics card don't actually support it. So it is none other than ray tracing. Ray tracing, in a layman's term, is producing extra realistic lighting effects and reflections in real time. Now, due to this real-time processing or rendering, ray tracing needs special graphics cards like the NVIDIA's RTX series GPU or the new RX 6000 series GPU from AMD, which support this technique. But when it comes to price, these cards are not a joke, guys. Besides, their prices have skyrocketed and you can't find them easily because of, you know, like extreme and heavy demands these days. The next setting is ambient occlusion. Now, this setting can be quite confusing among beginners, but ambient occlusion is simply a technique of giving depth to, you know, in-game objects or characters by playing with light sources and its shadows. So this technique, what it does is it gives shading to the point where two or more objects meet, and it is a technique which helps the in-game characters and objects to stand out or you know, give more of like a 3D effect in the video game. Now, there are few settings which doesn't really impact much on performance as compared to the ones that I've mentioned before, and some of them are motion blur, anisotropic filtering, draw distance. There are more, but I'm just going to explain this three. So first up is motion blur. Now, motion blur is nothing, it's just giving blur effect to movement. Anisotropic filtering is what it does is it determines the distance from which the texture, the video game textures, starts to load and appear in front of you. And draw distance is the distance from which all objects and characters in a video game start to load and appear in front of the player. So anisotropic filtering is about rendering textures on objects and characters, and draw distance is about rendering all the objects. That's the difference. And if you're holding on to a high-end graphics card, then your in-game options or settings will be automatically set to the highest or ultra, as default. So some people might find it unnecessary to know these settings, and some may be too lazy to figure out what they do in a video game, because most of the modern games are already good looking because of like good art design, like different rendering method, lighting effects, even good stories and characters. So since these modern games are already looking good even before you optimize the settings, sometimes you forget that you're playing at the lowest settings. So why do I even bother to make this video? Because knowing these settings and knowing their purpose can bring a balance in making your game run more smoothly, and at the same time making your game look even better instead of being stuck at the lowest setting. So guys, I'm gonna wrap up the first part here, and in the second video or in the second part I'll show you how to optimize these settings, and we'll also show you a practical comparison of optimized and unoptimized graphics. So this is it, I guess. Alright guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.